All right, thanks for joining us tonight here on ARC Salt Lake. I'm Brian Schnee. Friday night, January 23rd. Tonight, an exclusive interview, a domestic violence survivor sharing her story now that her abuser is behind bars. But before we get to all of that, we're going to begin with your forecast tonight. Meteorologist Sterling Polson, what are you doing here, Sterling?
Hanging out with you, man.
This is awesome. Happy 7 o'clock on a Friday. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And we got quite a storm brewing across the Central Plains in Texas, and it's going to continue to get worse. The thing about this, though, is that the warm air is pushing in from the southwest. So some of this cold air is not going to get all the way down to Houston until probably tomorrow afternoon. But a lot of snow now developing across Oklahoma, clear up into Kansas. That's been increasing in coverage, and it's moving toward the northeast. So St. Louis is next. Freezing rain headed for the Memphis area. So kind of a mess back there. You can see winter weather advisories in effect and winter storm warnings all across the, all the way from Texas clear up to Boston, where they're going to see some decent snow there as well. So this is the way it looks across. This is the way it looked this afternoon. You can see that haze in the valley here as we look from our Juan Diego Catholic High School Draper camera, but that should start to clear out a little bit. We've got this low pressure system that's going to push this way, but then we've got a cold front that's settling south right now through Utah. So that's going to kind of settle in the cold air for the next couple of days. It'll be a little bit colder than normal, but then eventually that's going to be pushed out and warm air will move back in. So we should mix out the valleys a little bit. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about what kind of temperatures you can expect. That's all coming up in the first alert forecast just ahead.
Sterling, thank you. A mother sharing the story of what she and her husband endured now that her abuser will spend decades in prison. David Remley kidnapped Brittany Deal and her children in 2024. Remley was sentenced last week. Deal says she and her 3 children escaped possible death at the hands of a serial abuser and are now working on putting their lives back together. Brian Will spoke with her about how she is doing after the trial.
I was scared. I didn't really feel like didn't trust the system. I was kind of paranoid, thinking, what if I do all this for nothing? Have to relive the trauma and have to face him and see him again, knowing all the pain he inflicted on me and my kids. And I think that was the most scariest thing, was knowing that I was going to have to get up there and face him and see him. And then in the back of my mind, not knowing if we were doing this for nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot with how the system works, and during my trial, they had a specialist come and that specializes in domestic violence for women, and she was part of my jury trial, and it helped the jury understand the cycle of abuse, because people are why does she stay, or how does he stay? They have kids, or you know what I mean? Or you think they're going to change and they promise you. There's just lots of reasons, which I could go on about forever. But anyway, I guess the point is that also made me feel better throughout the trial, having people on my side and make me feel I'm not crazy. The thing that I feel is so important that women should know, and or even men, anyone going through domestic violence, is to show up to that court date when there's a protective order put in place. It is very important. No matter how much they'll try to scare you or tell you you can't show up, and that's what the abuser wants. They want you to not show up, because then they get let free. Because if a victim doesn't show up for that and explain what happened, then they just get let go, and then they just continue to go on and hurt them again, or hurt other women, So I feel it's hard, very, very hard to stand up for yourself, and then to relive that trauma, the abuse that you went through, but it's so worth it in the end.
If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, there are resources for you. You can call the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition. The number you see there on your screen, 1-800-897-LINK. That's 5465. Family is grieving after a husband and father was hit and killed by a UHP trooper more than 2 weeks ago. On January 7th, Jack Wilcoxon was struck by the trooper as he was walking with his wife. 2 News' David Ochoa spoke with a close family friend.
Yeah, I mean, she's grieving. She's in shock. She's surviving one moment at a time, as are her kids. She's devastated. And she's a stay-at-home mom, and Jack was the primary provider. And there's this really cruel reality of death in that the logistics of life don't stop. And so she's also navigating that. She's trying to be a present mom, a supportive mom, and moving through her own grief and, learning how to exist in a world that doesn't include Jack anymore. She's struggling, understandably so.
And you mentioned the emphasis that she wants to put on all of this between, the story, the tragedy, and everything. Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Jack was a loving, kind, and compassionate man. He had no room for hate in his heart. He met everyone with, openness and without judgment. And he would want the officer's family to be held in everyone's prayers as well, because we know we have 2 families who hurt. We have 2 families who have been devastated. And he wouldn't want anyone to be met with any, anger or blame. And so Mandy really wants to spread that message of love and compassion and support for everyone involved, not just her family, but for the officer as well.
Jack was the family's sole provider, so the community is helping the family out with things like groceries and laundry, but they still need support for those things as well as funeral expenses. If you'd like to help them, you can find out how on our website, KUTV.com. The trooper is on administrative leave, and the Utah County Sheriff's Office is conducting the investigation. We also asked a retired deputy about how an investigation involving an officer might look.
What are the emotions when you have to investigate another law enforcement officer?
I would hope for any law enforcement officer it's not the best thing to have to do. It happens, and we do that, with regards to a lot of incidents, whether it's an officer-involved shooting or officer-involved accident, but it's never pleasant. But we expect that those people involved are going to do the best job. They're going to look at all the evidence. They're going to collect everything that's out there. They're going to find out why happened, they're going to collect all the evidence. They're going to make sure that everything is covered, and try to find out what really happened in those circumstances.
I mean, would you say it would, in these kinds of situations, it takes a little bit longer, takes a little bit, maybe quicker? It depends on the case, or is it just normal, however these things kind of play out?
I hope it, unfortunately for the public, I hope it takes a little bit more time. In this case where, an individual is out jogging, he was hit, for his family and for his loved ones, along with this officer, for his, for him. Make sure that it's a thorough investigation. David, I talk to you occasionally that not all investigations are as complete or thorough as they should be. And that bothers me. I think that they all should be that way. But in this case, we know that there is more likely going to be a thorough investigation. And as a result, hopefully, they're going to be able to glean the answers that they need in this circumstance.
To another news story in southern Utah, a neighborhood in Washington County says pet owners need to watch out for coyotes. The next few weeks mark the start of peak mating season. Samantha Hoffman reports.
Every 1 to 3 days, we'll see a coyote out there just hunting.
Dog owner Carly Saxton lives right next to a field in Ivins.
I would say small dog owners need to be aware and alert, just because they're big and they're hunters. The coyotes are.
Utah Tech wildlife biologist Jeffrey Smith says to expect seeing coyotes more often in the next few weeks as they become more active during breeding season.
Their movement patterns will be a little bit different, and they could go into places where they don't go as often, like neighborhoods.
The breeding season lasts between January and March. While Smith says they aren't aggressive towards people,
small animals, that could be a different story. So anything smaller than a coyote is potentially in the size range for prey.
So what are the main things people should do to keep their animals safe?
So the main thing is to keep cats inside, keep your dogs on a leash, make sure that rabies vaccines are up to date, and don't leave trash and food around your house to attract wildlife.
As we continue to develop, can we expect more animals like coyotes to appear in neighborhoods?
Yeah, this is one of the fastest growing areas in the United States, and as we encroach on wildlife, more interaction with wildlife is expected. It doesn't all have to be bad, though. We can be smart about it.
Smith added that coyotes have been in the area for thousands of years and they mate for life, so he urges people to be respectful of them. The DNR said that you can also call local nuisance control companies for safe removal. In Ivan, Samantha Hoffman, KUTV 2 News.
Coming up on Arc Salt Lake, how one Utah woman is preparing to compete in the Olympics in the fastest sport on the planet. One of the fastest sports on earth, one of the few women in the world who does it, and she's from Park City. In this Eye on Utah, Kristen Kenny meets a Utah Olympian training for the Winter Games.
This is one of the fastest sports on the planet.
We're the fastest, the most technical, and the most dangerous.
Feet first, on their backs, upwards of 80 miles per hour.
My mom watches like this.
Ashley Farquharson is one of very few female luge Olympians.
It's a little bit more rare. Like, some people have never heard of it at all, and you have to be like, well, do you know bobsled?
In fact, She told me only 3 women make the U.S. Olympic luge team for singles.
We have such a small team that gets to go to the Olympics.
And yet for Ashley, the sport didn't feel rare at all.
Growing up here, it didn't really feel like such a big deal.
That's because she grew up in one of the only places in the U.S. where the sport even exists.
There's only 2 tracks in the United States. There's one here and there's one in Lake Placid, New York.
Here, at the Utah Olympic Park, where she first watched her brother in the sport.
I just remember thinking that it was so cool, and it looked like he was having so much fun, and he would go so fast. And I was like, you gotta get me in there, Mom.
And sure enough, at just 11 years old,
what did you think of your first time luging?
It was the best thing ever.
Luge was just another after-school program in Park City through the Youth Sports Alliance. And when she wasn't sliding,
Okay.
she was here.
We are at my family's deli, the Clockwork Cafe.
A place that's served this town for decades.
We can't go anywhere in town without my parents stopping to chat with somebody.
What does this place mean to you?
It's pretty much all I can remember.
It's where she first worked, her humble beginnings,
Grew up in the kitchen.
while her other life on ice was taking shape.
I made my first national team when I was 20, and this is my 6th year on the national team.
She went on to compete in the Beijing Olympic Games, and now gearing up for her second Olympics.
I also feel like I'm a much better athlete than I was at that time.
But when she's back in her hometown, she's here.
It's nice to have something so close to home, and I know that all my teammates like to come here and get coffee and lunch also.
Kristen Kenny, KUTV 2 News.
Yeah, and I love me a good coffee shop too. Great story. Hope she does well in Milan Cortina. A major winter storm bringing bitter cold and heavy snow, sleet, freezing rain to a large part of the United States. Not us. We'll get to that in a moment, but it does stretch from Texas to New England. Shout out to my family all over there getting a little snow. At least 14 states have declared a state of emergency. Leaders across the U.S. are urging people to do the smart things and be prepared and, adhere to all the warnings and take things seriously.
This is a very dangerous combination of heavy snow and extreme cold temperatures.
We all believe it's not going to happen to us until it does. I would just tell everybody that this storm is significant enough. You need to be taking the proper preparations now.
I love how we need to be told in this society to be smart about things when, meteorologists kind of give us a nice heads up about these things. Leave it to the governor to tell you what's going on, apparently. So forecasters warn many Americans will likely face widespread travel disruptions, prolonged power outages, and extensive tree damage. It's like I grew up in the Northeast when we actually had snowstorms and ice storms or something. Anyway, maybe I'm desensitized by it all, Sterling, but at the end of the day, we really haven't had anything interesting going on here. So why don't you just focus on all of the other people across the country that are frigid right now?
Well, we'll get you all involved in everything here. How's that?
Sure.
This storm is interesting because it is not one of those storms that's going to be coming in and it warms up ahead of the storm and you get the south winds and then the cold air comes in behind it. The cold air is already here. So that is the problem with this storm. The cold air is here. It's 27 in Memphis, 17 in Oklahoma City, 13 in Louisville, 6 in Columbus, -9 in Chicago. The cold air is already arrived. And down here, off the coast of the Baja Peninsula, there's a low pressure system which is sending moisture above that cold air, and it's precipitating through the cold air. That's why they're going to get a lot of freezing rain and ice storms because of that cold air already being in place. And that cold air is slowly, like molasses, moving toward the southeast. So eventually, even southern Georgia, southern Texas, we'll see that colder air. But kind of interesting, if you look at the wind chill, it's 27 below, 26 below. Chicago's 25 below. But Austin is 54. Oklahoma City with the wind chill is 2 degrees. So there's a difference right there. And 2 degrees in Boston with the wind chill. So the cold air is there, and then here comes the moisture streaming in from the southwest. It lifts up over that warm air. There's a lot of snow falling now in Oklahoma. Most of the state's seeing snow. Wichita, Kansas is seeing snow. Most of the state of Kansas is seeing snow. And it's headed toward Memphis right now. That's the next stop for it. Memphis, St. Louis, coming across Missouri, Arkansas tonight, and rain and thunderstorms across the southern part of Texas and in the Texas Panhandle. So here we go. 34 here in Ogden, 34 in Salt Lake, 36 in Provo. Fairly quiet here. Temperature today got up around close to 40, 45 degrees in Beaver, though. 40 in Moab and 51 in St. George. We had a little bit of light snow come through. It really didn't do anything at all. You can see down in the southern part of the state, the precipitation seems to be moving off to the east, but it's going to linger tonight. There's another little wave coming in from the west, so all of this is going to be diving south. The cold front is moving through now, so that's going to keep our temperatures cool, and it may alleviate some of the pollution in the valleys, so we're going to go with moderate Saturday and Sunday. Voluntary action, do what you can to we all need to do what we can to reduce the amount of pollution, and the chances of precipitation pretty much right now are less than 20%. As we take a look at temperatures tonight, 20s and 30s down in the lower deserts, and tomorrow we'll see those highs much colder, about 10 degrees from where we were a couple of days ago in the mid 30s. And here's the forecast for the next 7 days. You can see that we've got those temperatures right there around 51, and then warms up slowly through the week, and we end up in the 60s as we move into the weekend, next weekend. And for Salt Lake City, well, pretty quiet. No major storms in Utah. And haze comes back, and the haze came back the very next week.
That was nice. You know what else is nice? This was my request here, Sterling. I wanted to show people the storm.
This is
I don't know
Oklahoma.
exactly where this is.
Oklahoma.
We believe it's in, well, it's dark. I can't tell.
It's dark, but it's Oklahoma. That's where the snow is falling right now.
Yeah. We've been watching this camera for a few hours now. It has picked up. You could see wind sort of,
the wind is definitely,
the piling of the
kind
snow moving
sideways
around.
snow, but maybe they're going about 40 miles
Live snow. Remember when it did this in Utah? Maybe someday.
Someday.
All right, Sterling. Thank you very much.
Next week,
Not now.
Sorry.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Maybe someday. Coming up on Arc Salt Lake, the Gateway Mall is for sale. How many acres could be up for grabs? Gateway Mall on the west side of downtown Salt Lake is for sale. Penny up. The commercial real estate company selling all 20 acres of its property. The asking price has not been shared. I'm sure it's not cheap, though. It is a really cool property. The online listing says the open air mall has a 92% occupancy rate. Interesting. Gateway first opened back in 2001, blending outdoor retail and restaurant space with apartments. I think it's cool. I just think we need some more attraction in there. The Asher Adams Hotel is definitely keeping people in there. Utah Jazz, they have the day off, but they'll be back in action tomorrow night, taking on the Miami Heat. Delta Center, Jazz coming off a loss to the San Antonio Spurs. The Heat are sitting one game above 500. You can watch tomorrow's game. 7:30, you're home for the Jazz. KJazz, Channel 14.
The Super Bowl of Caring. Brought to you by America First Credit Union, Smith's, Tech City, Ford, Balance of Nature, and Rocky Mountain Power.
You can help end child hunger in Utah with our Super Bowl of Caring. Stop scrolling right now. Scan the QR code on your screen. Go to KUTV.com/donate if you'd like to help out. $10 can help feed a child for a weekend. It is almost the weekend, speaking of. We are back on Monday. Be safe. We'll see you.